Hello racers! Welcome back! Today I will be talking about one of the decks that I've been working on after the regional qualifiers, and it's Han2Blue. So the version of Han that was a little bit forgotten, and I've also in my version incorporated the strategy that is not really utilized by a lot of players right now, so the Fringe package with Wingguard security team. And because of this, this deck plays a little bit differently than Han2Blue normally. It not really tries to stall the game and go for the late game, but it starves your opponent out of resources because most of the cards in the deck try to go 2 for 1. And we will be able to, in most matchup, reach the point where whenever we play a card, and your opponent plays a card, our card can kill theirs or trade up. And when they run out of cards, because card draw is not really that popular, we'll just be getting value after value. And when we reach this situation, there isn't really anything that can stop us because this deck can have answer to almost everything. Okay, so I will not be going about every single card in my list, but we will be going through the most important matchups, and I will be explaining why certain choices are really important in those. So firstly, let's talk about the easiest matchup of the bunch, so Sabine. Sabine Ecl to be exact, because this is the most popular version. For Sabine Yellow, you can treat her almost as the Han1 Green or Vader that we'll be talking later. But for Sabine Ecl, we can go in two different routes. We can go into route of racing because Phantom 2 and Outer Rim Outlaws are one of the most powerful turn 1 plays you can do. Especially Phantom, if you manage to have initiative, put it on turn 1. 5 damage is a really problematic thing for Sabine. And she will probably need to ECL her own ship into it. And then you can follow up with K2 Poe to close the game. And at the same time, you can utilize Village Protectors and Wingguard security team to reduce her damage as much as possible. So this matchup is pretty straightforward. You, of course, want to have the initiative, and you should be mulliganing for Phantom or Outer Rim Outlaws. Those are the two most important cards. And the second card that is really important and can really change the matchup is Entrenched. Because if Sabine goes space and will try to go the pilot route, you can just entrench her piloted unit, and you will not really be needing to worry about it for a few turns. And even if she then later removes the entrench with, for example, Poe, it's not really that big of a problem because the value that she lost from like that 3 turns before that, you would be able to push enough damage on your units to close the game. Okay, next we have Han. It's mostly Han Green, but Han Yellow basically plays the same way. In this matchup, it's again our best opening is Phantom, just because it not only trades into every single spaceship that Han can play, but it can put if Han, for example, goes for the resupply variant, we can just push enough damage that he will just need to either play really off curve, because if he ramps and then he will try to play removal, we can just put enough ground units that he will never be able to easily deploy. Or if he needs to trade his space, you will do the same. You will just get enough presence in the ground that it will be really hard for Han to do anything. in this matchup, if you are not, if you didn't find Phantom, you should look for Entrenched to lock those piloted ships, and then either go with just really aggro plays with K2 and Poe that you can play for one cheaper. Especially Poe on 4 resources is a really good play because it not only trades into Han, but the 8 damage that he can push is really a problem for Han, because 2 attack from Poe can put Han in the situation that he will need to remove every single threat that we have, and since we do run units with shield and units like K2, we can push that last ounces of damage pretty easily. One of my favorite plays versus Han is deploying our own Han on 5, then playing Wrecker, killing their 3-5 units like Qi'ra, Ahsoka, or almost like any unit they can play before 7, and then again on 5 mana on the next turn, you play Wingguard Security, you put 2 shields on Wrecker and Wingguard, and it basically locks the game because Han will not be able to remove Wrecker for the rest of the game. Even if he waylays it, you will still have board advantage, and you can just play him again with his ability. So Han is also pretty easy matchup for Han2Blue, and it's not really difficult on either side of the deck, because like if they go pilots, you have a really good answer. If they go ramp, you also have a really good gameplay into it. So having this matchup as a really easy one is always a big plus. And of course, after sideboard, we can put in Champs and Doulas to then completely lock this leader out. Next is Quinlan. For me, this is the by far hardest matchup for Han2Blue, because not only the fact that Quinlan runs Tarkintown, and like any Han2 player will say that Tarkintown is like the biggest issue for the deck. It is, you can play around it, but it just puts you in the situation that you have much less play than normal. But even though Quinlan is really hard matchup, it's still winnable. The card you should be looking for at the start is Sabine. Sabine is the safest turn 1 play. Or Outer Rim Outlaws. They are pretty safe, but they will basically force you into trading into their 2-drop. So Outlaws plus Open Fire can be a really decent start. And then one of the most important part versus playing versus Quinlan is looking for Poe and Wrecker, because playing Poe on 4 resources and then Wrecker on 5 is one of the ways to get enough of the advantage early to win the game. Quinlan also have a second way of playing versus us, and it's the discard package. And this is actually an even harder part for the deck. But it's also really risky strategy for him, because if he will start going into discard early, and we stabilize with like Yoda, X-Wing that draws a card, and Force throws, he can be put into like extremely awkward situation. And if he doesn't get enough from his deploy, this is the moment when we can basically stabilize the game. If you manage to put Luke after a Sentinel, there is not really a way for Quinlan to win. But it's not as easy to do, because even though Luke is extremely powerful in the matchup, Han unit in Quinlan still kills it. So one of the ways to prevent it is kill Quinlan into 7 mana turn. So then you play Luke, and he cannot ambush Anakin into Luke this turn, which will allow you to maybe put a Sentinel behind it. Last card that can be really good is Rebellious Hammerhead. Even though Quinlan can discard a lot of cards from our hand, he can really struggle with dealing with a 6 cost units in space, because now, especially now, they don't really run a lot of removal, and 5 damage every single turn can stack up pretty quickly. Next, we have Vader4 Yellow to be exact, and this is also a little bit tricky matchup. There are specific cards you should be looking for in the matchup to lock it. It gets much easier after Sideboard when you can put in Confiscates and Bombing Runs, but even before Sideboard, this matchup is not unwinnable or not even that terrible. You, of course, should be looking for turn 1 Phantom, Red Squadron X-Wing, or Yoda. Any of those 3 is okay. If you go into the Yoda route, you will be forced into racing, and then you should look forward to have Entrench, have Poe, and have Kanan to put you in the position that you can out-heal the damage and put enough threats on the board that Vader will be forced to play defensively. And in this matchup, there are few cards that are really key. One of them is Open Fire. Open Fire is the safest removal for Victory Leader, and Victory Leader is the most important card to remove because his tokens are not dealing as much damage. Like, most of his units not deal as much damage, but he have a lot of them, and Victory Leader can just put us in a position that we will not be able to race. The second unit for me that is really important is Kanan Jarrus. Putting him on a second turn, so on 3 resources as a 4/3, Vader doesn't really have anything to remove him, and he will basically be swinging for 6, on average 5-6, because he will deal 4, and then he will discard the top card and heal. And since this unit runs not only Phantom but Sabine, sometimes you even will be able to discard 2 cards. And I had situation that Kanan was healing for 3, and then 7 damage swing is just extremely hard for any deck to deal. And then on 4 resources, Poe is just the best unit to play, because not only it stops Vader from deploying, but he will need to either use his barrage to heal him, or Waylay or Power of the Dark Side, so he will not be developing his board to deal with Poe. And of course, after Sideboard, when we have when we have Bombing Run, this matchup basically becomes really easy, because Bombing Run can clear every single unit he plays. If you have Open Fire and Bombing Run, there is really a small chance for Vader to win the matchup. Next, Qi'ra. Qi'ra is, for me, one of the easier matchups, but it requires you to play in a really specific way that at the same time requires you to look for specific cards, and those cards are Yoda, K2, Red Squadron X-Wing, especially early in the game, and then later you should looking for Chewbacca, Luke, and Rebellious Hammerhead. And all of those cards have one thing in common: they go 2 for 1. So if you play Yoda and Qi'ra decides to remove him, you will draw the card. And this is the most important part of this playstyle. You should just starve her out of resources. Qi'ra doesn't really have that many draw, and if she plays Pershing on turn 1, you should try to remove it as fast as possible. That's why versus Qi'ra, you should be looking for 2-drops that can deal 3+ damage in the ground, so Qi'ra relatively can only draw 1 card with Pershing. Because you attack into it, she uses the ability, then you attack into it again. Yoda is also decent into that if you have Force Throw to back it up, because you can play Yoda, she plays Pershing, you can Force Throw, kill Pershing or deal him enough damage so he will die. And this is also a really decent way to deal with him. And Pershing is the biggest threat for the deck for this playstyle, because if you go into the late game, you will just win by in this strategy, because for example, Chewbacca from Smuggle is basically a 3-for-1. You are not using a card from your hand because you play Smuggle, you kill something, and then you have a 4/10 body that is not really hard to be killed, but also really can really push a lot of damage if left unchecked, because I've finished a lot of games just by playing Chewbacca. My opponent didn't really deal with him because they thought that 4 damage is not enough, and then I played Wrecker, dealt 5 damage into my own Chewbacca, and then hit for 9 is really big, and they not only need to kill Chewbacca, they also need to kill Wrecker to prevent lethal. In this matchup, also Open Fire is really good because it kills Qi'ra instantly after when she flips. And for Qi'ra, the way she can go back into the game is either really big barrage plays that can go that can kill a lot of your cards, or Blast. But if Qi'ra plays Blast and you manage to go 2-for-1 for the remainder of the game, you will just replenish your board. And even if she does that again, you can just do it again because of how, like, Red Squadron, X-Wing, Yoda, K2, all of those cards will just, even if they are killed, you'd still get enough value to deal with her. Another really important card in this matchup is Felder Dragon, because this deck doesn't really have that many ways to deal with big ships. So you should try to remove her threats without using Fel, if possible. Like, for example, Vader's Mauls that can be dealt with like Chewbacca's Hammerheads and Luke Skywalkers, and just keep Fel for Devastators and Avengers, because those are the only units that you should be scared of in this matchup. Also, which is really funny in this matchup, Entrench is actually a decent removal late game, because if Qi'ra, for example, plays Devastator, if you entrench it, okay, you will not be able to play a space unit for the rest of the game, but at the same time, you remove that 10 mana card for 2 mana, and if you have another entrench, and for example, she plays Avenger, you can do the same, and it's sometimes enough to win you the game, because as I said before, when you starve Qi'ra out of resources, she will rely on top decking, and then she will most likely be playing one big unit a turn. And since a lot of cards can deal with one big unit, it's not that big of a problem to like forgo of Space Arena just to focus on the ground and win from there. Next, Ray Data Vault, because I think Data Vault is the only real problematic deck. Tarkin Town version, even though it could be like really powerful versus Han, I think that 25 HP puts her really in a tough position. So versus Ray, you basically want to get domination on the ground as fast as possible. It's not that hard to achieve with Outer Rim Outlaws that can trade really well, Village Protectors and Wingard Security Team. If you manage to use Wingard Security Team of 5 resources to get shield into anything, Qi'ra has a really problem dealing with shielded units. So this matchup basically goes into build as big board as possible, because Ray doesn't really have anything to deal with a big board. Rebellious Hammerhead is one of the cards that Qi'ra struggles really heavy against, because she will need to use hard removal on it, and if it kills anything and she uses her hard removal on it, she can be put into the situation that it's really hard for her to then get back into the board. And late game, because of the fact that we not only run Luke's but also Chewbacca's, we will just have a better late game than her, just by sheer amount of like extremely powerful threats like Wrecker, Poe, Luke, Hammerhead, Chewbacca's, and Wingards. And because we can play these threats relatively early, and she deploys on 6, it's really hard for her to get into the board. And of course, one of the most important cards in this matchup is Luke, because you can play Luke on Rey deploy, and if you manage to kill something on your own board before she deploys, she can never deploy into the open board, because the threat of instantly dying to Luke is too big. Okay, so let's talk about sideboard. I personally right now have a really clean sideboard, so it's 3 Confiscate, 3 Champs and Duelas, 2 Bombing Run, 2 Kriat Dragons. I think a lot of people now play Kriat in the main deck. For me, he's a really risky card to be playing, not only because you need 8 mana to play him, but because you cannot use him from Smuggle like Chewbacca. I just prefer to play Chewbacca main because he's much safer. I can much more reliably use him. But versus certain matchups that go into the later game, like for example Anakin, Rey, Qi'ra, Kriat is just a really powerful cards, and it's an easy way to just make those matchups a little bit better. Confiscate, there's so many pilots in the meta that just having additional answer into them is just really good. Now we can go into the question, should we play Fang or Confiscate? I think in a deck that most likely will play 1 card a turn, Confiscate is better, because you can play Confiscate and something. And with Fang, it's really hard to fit Fang plus any other play, because we only run Sabine as a 2-drop, and then if we want to play anything in addition to Fang, we would need 5-6 mana. And at the same time, if we have 5-6 mana, if we play Confiscate, we can play Poe in addition to it, or Wrecker, or any one of our bigger units. So I think in Han2Blue, Confiscate on average is better than Fang. But of course, if, for example, your local meta is really heavy on pilot decks, you can just play both. So for example, put 2 Fangs into the main. If I would have any upgrade removal in main, it would be Fang, because Fang can be played in any matchup, and consistency matters, because even in a matchup that you don't really play Confiscate, Fang can be played. But I think in sideboard, Confiscate is just better. Then we have Champs and Dula. Whenever you see Han or any deck that ramps, slot him in. I think in Han 2, Cham is so much better than in any other deck, because if your opponent play resupply on second turn, if you answer their resupply with Cham, the game is basically over. It's too big of a tempo swing to recover. Next we have Bombing Run, and Bombing Run is for one specific matchup. It's for Vader. Vader becomes a really big deck at the moment. It's really popular, and I think having a card that completely makes the matchup from kinda hard to auto win is always a really good to have in the sideboard. You could also put this card versus Han2 Data Vault or Han2 ECL, more as a one-off, just to sometimes, if they go really wide, surprise them with Bombing Run and clear the entire board. Okay, so let's talk about the different ways of how people play the deck and why I didn't put them in my version. First, is Profundity. I actually really like Profundity, and I would love to have it in the sideboard, but I think on average it should be less versatile than Kriat. But this is one of the things that I'm testing at the moment, because Profundity is a little bit better versus, for example, Rey. But The only thing that makes me not really want to play it is no glory on the result, because if your opponent, if you play Profundity and it gets no glory, I don't think you can recover from it. So this is one of the ways to like have a little bit better matchup versus prolonged heroic opponents. Obi-Wan, I think the fringe package with Wingard security team is just safer than Obi-Wan because your leader is not Force, so Obi-Wan doesn't really get that big of a benefit than normal. And without that additional draw a card, he can be a little bit underwhelming. Senatorial Corvette is a card that really fits the strategy of going 2 for 1, but at the same time, 5 mana 5/4 is a stat line that is not ideal, and even more so if you want to play it on 4 mana as a 5/2, it can just put you in the situation that it trades down too much. So I'm personally not the biggest fan of Corvette, but if I would prefer to improve my matchups into like Yoda, into Rey, into Anakin, this can be one of the cards that you could fit in. Tech, he's basically, if the heart control comes back, just slot him in. He's a really good into this matchup, but I don't think he's really needed at the moment versus anything specific. And since you already have Cassians and Chewbacca for Smuggle, you don't really need more. Windu is just a decent follow-up. You could also put here the Gorilla Attack Pod. It's an aggressive late game card that can go 2, 3 for 1 and then push damage into the face. I just don't really like Windows stats at the moment. I think when we went back a little bit from 3-5 units, now people play 5-5 and 6-6 statted 5-6 drops. He lost a little bit of his of the power that he had, but still playing a one-off can surprise some people and can be a decent addition. Qi'ra in blue, I don't think you will get coordinated that often. 4 mana 5/5 is a really decent stat line, but at the same time, he's just much worse than Poe or even the 4/2 Shielded Sentinel. The only like big benefit from him is that he is forced, so he can enable force throw, and we are not really running that many force units. I often use force throw as just a discard card for 1. But of course, then having the possibility of like Uber power play with force throw is still a really good to have. But I don't think Qi'ra is what the deck needs, because you are looking for Poe or K2 on 4 resources, not really just a little bit overstated unit. Then there is Ghost, and Ghost, we run Phantom, so it can look like a really decent like combination. And Ghost has a really good stat line. 5/6 is really, really good, because 4 mana 5/4 spaceship will trade up with most stuff. And if Quinlan becomes more popular, it's a really, really good addition. Because as I said before, Quinlan struggles into big spaceships. But in the current meta, I just don't feel the need.
And lastly, we have Regional Governor. My headphones died, so I had to switch for my main microphone. So sorry for the change. Governor is one of my favorite units in the game. I think it's a really high skill ceiling card, and I really like to include it in a lot of my decks. But at the same time, I don't think in this particular version Governor is that powerful. I think she is much better when you can play her with addition to other units, so with more of a wide strategy or wide lower curve deck. But on the other hand, she is a really powerful play versus Qi'ra, because if you get a big advantage on the board versus Qi'ra, which is not that hard, and then block Barrage or Super Laser Blast, you can put Qi'ra in the position that she will never be able to recover. So if you struggle with Qi'ra, it can be one of the cards that can change this matchup quite a lot. Okay, and lastly, I just want to remind everybody that we run coaching. So if you want to schedule a session with us, we mostly do 1 or 2 hour sessions. Just email us at SWU-SwoopRacers@gmail.com, or we have also dedicated channel on the Enigma Discord that will be linked below, and we can schedule what you need to improve on, and then adjust our time to fit it the best. So we can, for example, at the beginning, one of the best things to do is if you record some games, then we can review them together and look for what are the things you can struggle, and then we can work on it in the session or in the next sessions afterwards. We can also help with a tournament preparation, adjusting your deck, fitting it to the meta, or even switching the deck completely. And lastly, we can always help with just finishing touches into the deck building. Okay, thanks everybody for listening, and have a great day.